Alright, so in this next little video now, we're going to talk about another aspect of this, or another aspect of time travel, which we haven't spoken about. Again, it's going to be quite brief. I'm trying to keep all these videos kind of bite-sized, I suppose, like relatively short. So this one is on, so we've already said, if we imagine this time travel story, the one with Tim going back to kill his grandfather, so let's just sketch it. I mean, in its bare bones, actually, we can just draw it out like this. All we need is grandfather existing in two different, well, dying in 1950, let's say. Can't remember exactly what the dates were before. And then we've got Tim travelling back from, say, 2020. So there's Tim to 1900 and trying to kill grandfather. If we set it up in that way, we've already got that Tim can't do it, and we've got that Tim can't do it, and it's not in this case because grandfather begets Tim's dad, who begets him after this time. I mean, those are going to be relevant facts, but the most relevant fact is that grandfather in fact dies in 1950, so because grandfather dies in 1950, Tim can't kill him, right? And we've said that this is because there's only one past, there's only one 1900. This, I suppose, is on this kind of linear picture of time, but we could have a slightly different picture here, and this often, I think, gets played out in science fiction books and movies and whatnot, and it's the idea of multiple timelines. So yeah, in fact, we can have a story. So I'm going to draw it again now. Well, I tell you what, in fact, I think I've still got the original story. There it is, the grandfather paradox. Go back to that storyboard. So what we can have, rather than, let's get rid of some of these dudes here, let's keep the original story. But this time, instead of drawing Tim up here, let's get rid of that. What's perfectly possible, and doesn't cause, well, perfectly possible, and allows Tim to kill grandfather, let's say. So as it stands, Tim can't, in the relevant sense of being, actually able to do it, kill grandfather, because he doesn't. What we can do is we can imagine that there is an alternative timeline out there where, okay, here's alternative, oh, I'm not going to be able to get his head in. Let's draw it a bit lower down. So this is an alternative 1850. So this is meant to be like a duplicate of the actual world up until this point. And here's grandfather. We can imagine a world where Tim goes to an alternative 1850. There's a gun. And in the alternative 1850 manages to shoot grandfather. So, grandfather dies in this alternative reality. Put a G in his head. In 1850. Okay. Then, of course, in that particular story, none of these events occur. So grandfather doesn't beget dad. Dad doesn't beget Tim, and therefore Tim isn't there in this world. There's no Tim in the 1950 of this world to go back in time. Tim, not there. But that's okay, because Tim doesn't need to be in that world to go back, because he's here in this world and gone back here. So look, you can tell a story where Tim is able to go back into a past, let's say, and kill a grandfather of that past. But importantly, I mean, I don't think that we ought to count this as being time travel. It's rather something like dimension travel. I mean, we're here drawing this time 1850 and linking it up with the 1850 of our reality, but really that's just because, everything before this matches up. It's not like you can actually place these things. These are two completely separate timelines. There's nothing really to say that they're happening at the same time or anything like that, and so and Tim isn't really travelling back into his own past. He's travelling into this other realm of existence, which is completely separate from the one that he's in and operating within that realm. Yeah, so it's a rather different kind of a picture, really, from a picture of time travel. As I said, this is like dimension travel. Uh, yeah. So I just wanted to point out, in case you were thinking of this, hang on a minute, couldn't he travel back into an alternative past? Yeah, I suppose so. But then we shouldn't really call that the past. It's not really time travel. It's dimension travel, and that's really the point I wanted to get across. And we can tell these stories. So a similar one for the causal loop story. In the causal loop story, for example, rather than have, well, let's do the one with the diary. So I'm not going to draw it out, but we could have young Jane travelling. Well, actually, why not draw it out? So let's just do a new board. So actually what we could have is something like this. So here we have a whole series of different universes, really, different realms of existence, I suppose. And we could have one, so here we have, so I'm just going to not even bother draw, I'm just going to draw their heads. Young Jane and young Peter. And in this one what happens is young Jane travels to the future. In fact, we should probably call her young Jane 1 and young Peter 1. So young Jane 1 travels to, so here's this one where we've got young Jane 2 and young Peter 2. So this now will be, so if here we've got old Jane and old Peter, then this is going to be, well, we don't need old Jane. We've got old Peter 2 here now, because that's old Peter 1. Hope you get the idea. Here, young Jane 1 travels forward into a different kind of a different realm, the future. Old Peter 2 travels back to young Jane 3 now, and young Peter 3. So now here is old Peter 2, who gives the book to Jane, who then travels forward into, right, where old Peter 4 is going to exist, because old Peter 3 is going to be here. Right, and then we can have it that in this bit, this universe here, there is an empty diary. Then young Jane travels to here, old Peter comes back here, they put the entries in. So then the diary has got 2 entries in it, and then he travels and travels back, and then we're going to have another realm of existence down here where there are going to be 4 entries in the diary, right? So that's all fine. We can tell the story about the diary slowly filling up with each travel that happens. And indeed, there is more than one travel going on here. Here's young Jane, here's old Peter 2, here's young Jane 3, here's old Peter 4. And the point is, yeah, oops, here we've got the diary slowly being filled up, but none of it's happening in the same timeline or the same reality. So there's no problem with it. But of course, is this time travel? Well, not really. I mean, really it's dimension travel again, which is a bit different from time travel. So okay, I just wanted to point out, in case you were thinking about that idea, that you could have different timelines. Yep, you could do, but then I don't really think it counts as time travel. Okay, so that's that. Next video. Another little issue I want to bring to your attention in the next video. This is another interesting little thing which I want to ask you about.